Well, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this new episode of Inspiring Our World. Our theme today is gratitude, and I am so grateful because I have one of my dearest beloved friends here with me, Dave Balzer, whom many of you know. And we're just gonna riff on this idea of gratitude. Dave, of course, is our technical advisor for Nikken. He's a man of absolute brilliance. I have so much respect and admiration for you, Dave. And I just thank you for spending your time with me today. And let's just talk. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? I know you're doing well. It's always a pleasure to see your bright, cheerful face. It lifts me up and it makes me feel good. When you asked me if I could join you on this discussion, I jumped at it, and I did because the subject is gratitude.
Yes.
And we're about to move into what is my favorite holiday of the year, which is Thanksgiving, and it could be called gratitude giving. But it's Thanksgiving, and it's my favorite. It supplants Christmas and all the others because it's unfettered with the kind of commercialism that you see in a lot of other holidays. And I don't want to belabor that, but the bottom line is you get together on Thanksgiving Thursday with your family and your loved ones and your friends, and you give thanks. You're grateful for what you have. You're grateful for being able to get together. You don't have to go out and buy a lot of things. You don't have to go out. There's not gift giving. I mean, unless you want to. There's not gift, at least in my household, there's not gift giving. And it's a special time of the year where everybody puts the unimportant things in their lives on hold. And they get together and they come together at the dining room table, and we're able to be with each other, we're able to laugh with each other, we're able to spend some really true quality time together. And I'm so grateful for that. The way it's evolved in my household, do you want me to stop talking? You can interrupt me.
No, go.
The way it's done in my household is our table, our home is open. So we have a lot of people who join us for Thanksgiving that I might be meeting for the first time.
Wow.
And that's okay. My middle son calls it the Thanksgiving home for misfits, which is really, that misfit kind of has a negative connotation to that. That's not what he means. For instance, this Thanksgiving, Brian, my middle son, he texted me the other day and he said, "Hey Pops, is it okay if Kristen and her husband join us for Thanksgiving?" And my initial reaction was, sure. Who is she? Well, that's okay. If Brian feels like she needs a place to go, and her husband needs a place to go, and I'm all for it. And they're coming, and they're welcome to come. And he's bringing a sweet potato pie, something or other, and she's bringing some kind of a salad. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to say our Thanksgiving is potluck, but it's kind of like a potluck. And I know that one of my oldest son's good friends, Bryce, who I have met, but I see Bryce once a year at Thanksgiving.
Okay.
And he comes and he always gives a wonderful thank you of gratitude when we're about to dine. And refers to us as family because he doesn't have anybody.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go into the situation with his parents, but it's not good. And he's about 35, and he lives alone, and he works hard, and he just doesn't have anywhere to go.
Yeah.
So he's welcome at our house, and it's so great to have him, and he's fun. And we have a number of, and of course I have my two sons and their significant others will be there. We've got a couple of good friends who we met through Nikken who will be there. And so I guess we're going to probably have about 14, 16 people, something like that.
I love this. And I believe you met your wife through Nikken as well.
I did, but I'm not sure I'm going to classify that as gratitude. I have to correct that, or other I'm in big trouble. No, you know what? You find out, Sarah, of course, is who you're referring to, my wife. She was my boss at Nikken.
I didn't know she was your boss.
Oh yeah, she was in charge of the speaker program when I was living in Connecticut. She was the person who decided, okay, this week you're going to go to Lansing, Michigan, and 2 weeks from now you're going to go to, Akron, Ohio. And so I reported to her. She vetted my expense reports, and they used to get a big laugh out of my expense reports because, unlike other people, and I'm not talking about people at Nikken, but unlike other business people that you might hear about padding their expense reports and going out to expensive dinners and things like that, I would submit a Friday night dinner, because I was on the road and I arrived at my destination, and I would go to a fast food place and just grab a quick burger, and I would submit a dinner bill for $6.22. and they would laugh. So, that's another, so the whole Nikken connection with Sarah and I actually, besides communicating quite a bit because of her position at Nikken and my affiliation with Nikken, we connected on music, which is interesting. I would never have expected her to enjoy the kind of music that she enjoys, but that's all right. I'm not going to out her. But it's and then this past pandemic, and being, I don't want to say cooped up in our house with just the two of us, but you know what it was like, and people weren't going anywhere, and so we spent a lot of time together, and it made me even more grateful for her putting up with me. And I would say that one of the things that we both realized is we had to give the other person some space. So I'd go to my office and I'd put on the headphones and I'd listen to music, and she'd be off doing something else, and we were in the same house together, but we weren't in each other's face the whole time. And this is, as you know, this is my second time around. This is my second marriage, and I'm just incredibly grateful to have found Sarah. That we found each other. And the only fly in the ointment, at least it was in the beginning of the relationship, is she's significantly younger than I am. And I remember we were on a Nikken trip. Remember the cruise?
I don't think I got to go on that cruise for some reason.
And I'll make a long story short. We were coming back from Ensenada on the bus that linked the city of Ensenada, Mexico, to the cruise ship. Where you would disembark. And we were coming back on the bus, and there was a mariachi guitarist who was on the bus riding with us, and he was playing songs and trying to get everybody to sing, and I didn't feel like singing. I just didn't. I was sitting there. I was okay. I wasn't unhappy, or I wasn't upset. I just didn't feel like singing. And I was sitting next to Sarah, and he said, "Aren't you going to sing? Aren't you going to sing?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, your daughter's singing." And he knew it wasn't my daughter, but I got some of that at the beginning of our relationship, but we're well past that at this point. And right now I think she's probably significantly more mature than I am. So
I think we were all so delighted when you found each other, because we all love you and we all love Sarah, and it was just kind of magical to see the two of you wind up together. And I mean, I see the pictures behind you here of your wedding. I'm thinking it's your wedding day right there behind.
No, actually that is my daughter.
I can't see
this one over here.
They're all a little blurry, but it looks like a wedding.
No, that is my daughter.
And
I'm walking, I'm in my tux, and I'm walking her down the aisle, and we're both laughing.
Great.
But so Sarah and I actually got married in our backyard.
Oh, lovely.
And we had about 100 people here,
Nice.
And we had it catered from our two favorite restaurants, local restaurants. We had a lot of people here. Maybe 50% of them were Nikkenites in some way, either employees or distributors.
Yes.
And we had a fabulous time.
Well, I think this is something that it points to. I mean, here we are, all of us in Nikken, involved with Nikken, and that the family, I mean, just the fact that you met somebody through Nikken and ended up marrying her, that you had a lot of people at your actual wedding that were from Nikken. Nikken is a family too. Like, we have healthy family as one of our, 5 pillars of wellness. And some people, like the young man you mentioned, don't really have their own native family to be with, but they find their family in Nikken, right? And others have fantastic families that they're great with, but they also, then their family extends with Nikken. And this is something I've always loved, is that we really have an international family. We have family members in, South America and Central America and Europe and here and Canada. And it's so beautiful to me, because it's all part of the movement of humans being more, and this sense of well-being and genuine respect and love for one another.
There's no question about it, and it sounds somewhat cliche, and almost like, oh, is this a setup to promote Nikken? It's not. And if anybody knows anything about Nikken, and I want to show my Nikken shirt here, if anybody knows anything about Nikken, they will realize very quickly that it comes from the heart.
Yes.
And I remember my first real interaction at a Nikken convention. I was invited. This was before I had an official affiliation with Nikken. Do you remember this story?
I'm not sure which one you're going to tell, because you're a great storyteller.
This is the one where it was held at the Disneyland Hotel, and Mr. Masuda, our founder, had flown in, and I was sitting there, and I'm kind of, at that point, I'm a business consultant. I did a lot of work with a lot of corporations, some medium-sized, some large, some small, mostly FDA, regulatory consultant. And I don't want to say I was cynical, but maybe that's the right word. And I sat there, and I was invited just to come and observe. And Mr. Masuda took the stage, and he spoke in Japanese with Andy Nakashima translating for him. Yes. And although I paid attention to what Andy was translating, it was almost as if the translation was not necessary. And when the convention, and I have to say, Mr. Masuda talked about how Nikken was going to succeed by caring about its distributors, caring about the company, and caring about the world around us. Yes. And I thought, okay, this guy's going to be eaten by the sharks. There's no way that this company's going to succeed, because he doesn't have a clue. And I couldn't possibly have been more wrong. And I'm absolutely fundamentally grateful for having been that wrong. And at the end, I got up with my buddy who invited me, and we went on stage, and people were lining up to pay their respects to Mr. Masuda. And of course, he gave me a hug. And the only thing I can tell you is there was some kind of energy exchange, some kind of vibrational resonance that was imparted to me from Mr. Masuda. And I've never been the same. Yes. And I'm grateful for that.
Yes.
And I've been committed to the objectives, the true core objectives of Nikken since. And
gosh, as you speak it, as you said that, I felt it in my body. I'm going to be honest. I felt it. My legs started tingling, chills.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I know of which you speak, and I know the truth of it for you, and also for me, and for many thousands of people. I believe, really a very highly evolved soul, and had that ability, kind of like Alma, who hugged the hugging saint, Alma.
Yeah.
She does that. He had this ability to transfer so much unconditional love through his hugs that, would almost knock you over. It was so beautifully, devastatingly wonderful. I don't know. It was just bigger than life almost.
And so as far as gratitude is concerned, I am grateful that I was open enough to accept that.
Yes.
Even though I didn't quite understand it, I felt it, and I came to maybe not an understanding, but a realization. And so I immediately found ways to become more and more connected with Nikken, as you know, and became a corporate speaker, and helped with some of the product development, and did those kinds of things. And I've been going, I wouldn't say I'm a recidivist, but I have left Nikken and come back, and I never left. In my mind, I never left. I did other things from a business standpoint for various reasons, but the mentality, the goals, the view of the world that I'm grateful for Nikken imparting to me has never wavered. That's never wavered. And I'm grateful for the Nikken distributors and those associated with Nikken, like yourself, Julie, one of my favorite people. And you may know that there was a brief schism recently where I was doing my own business. I was making medical diagnostic kits that I was distributing, having them manufactured under contract in Santa Fe Springs, California, and shipping them all over the world. And when I learned that Luis Kasuga had come back to lead, and I had met Luis a long time ago, and he's one of the finest people that I know, who I'm very grateful to having had time to spend with him. When I heard that he was back and that he was going to be in charge, I immediately relinked as quickly as I possibly could. So I'm grateful for that. I have many positive people in my life, like yourself, like Luis. I'm going to mention, Nancy. Nancy. Well, I'd be here. She was Cahey, but now she's Birchman. Nancy Birchman.
That's right.
Who's been with Nikken? How long? I don't know how long.
Long time.
Long time. 30 years probably.
Yep.
And I want to mention her because just as I'm talking about my commitment and dedication to Nikken, inside the organization there are people like Luis, there are people like Nancy, who are, what should we say? They bleed Nikken green. They're completely. They'll always be. They're unwavering, and you and I have to be grateful for those people.
Oh, hugely. I mean, there's so much loyalty. And in the consultant force as well, there's so many people that have been involved for many years, and then there's wonderful new people. I just met one this morning who's brand new and just went silver, who's as excited as we still are. But it always amazes me, the loyalty. And I think this is where gratitude is so interesting, is that true gratitude isn't just for when everything's going singingly and well. It's also when things are difficult and hard, and when we have challenge, and moving through those challenges, because we know that's when we grow the most. And so, like anything else, our families have challenges, Nikken's had challenges, you have personal challenges with your own mind or body or whatever. And I mean, I had a challenge recently with some back stuff, and I completely changed everything with my exercise program and stopped doing the yoga and the Pilates and went and started gyrotonics. And that was a revelation to me, and my back is fantastic again.
Oh, time out.
What?
What are gyrotonics?
Gyrotonic, it's a whole form of movement, rather like Pilates. You work with towers, you work with, but it works a lot with the spiralic movement of the body.
Okay.
So it's working with this. So, I come from a ballet background, as you know, and I always love to work out. This is something, and I'm so grateful for my body and that I can work out all the time. So when I had this back stuff, it was, and I did, obviously I use my mag flex and my belt, and of course my Nikken seat is here and everything. But this was something beyond that I couldn't figure out. Well, because the gyrotonics is so spiralic, as the energy works, as we know, energy works in vortexes and spirals, it works with the body that way. Within the first lesson, private lesson I had, Dave, at the end of the lesson, I stood up and said, my back is different. Whatever that is, just like when I first used the MagFlex. My back is different. Something's happening. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to do this. Same with gyrotonic. I mean, it's like something happened. I'm in. And I've been doing it 3 times a week ever since. And I'm getting and I'm pretty strong anyway, but much stronger. My back is fantastic. And, so there's just so much in all of this. Like I want to say, like, there's the people of Nikken. It makes it marvelous. And then there's the technologies of Nikken, which I am passionate about because it's to do with nature and the laws of the universe. And it's so much about harmony, like music. It's the harmony of nature and how nature supports us. And I never get tired of that conversation, ever.
No, I agree. And if we're going to talk about gratitude here, I'll slip in here that I am eternally grateful that since as long as I can remember, I have been curious.
Yes.
And my curiosity is coupled with open-mindedness. And I bring it up because we're about to, and I'll do a little teaser here, we're about to introduce a couple of products for Nikken, which involve the phenomenon that we refer to as grounding. And I'm saying, okay, when I first heard about the grounding mat, and I thought, oh man, what is this? This is grounding. What kind of nonsense is this? I mean, that was my initial reaction. Because why? Because I wasn't familiar with it, because I didn't know anything about it, but I was curious, and I'm happy about that. I'm grateful. And so I did my research, and I looked, and I said, oh my word, you're ignorant. To me, I'm ignorant. Not stupid, but ignorant. Yeah. I didn't know. I wasn't informed. And until I did my research and looked at the potential impact that grounding can have on our health, our overall health, and our overall well-being. And when I say well-being, ability to relax, ability to clear the mind, ability to suppress inflammation and things like that. I mean, I'm talking about what the research papers are talking about. I'm not making any claims here, so please don't do that. I would be grateful if you didn't put that on me. So I'm really happy about that. And I'm really happy to not only have my eyes opened, but I'm grateful to, at my tender age, to still retain the openness and the curiosity that allows me to expand.
Well said. I think this is something you and I have so much in common with this, and I have to just grab this because I got the book, the Earthing book, right? And just studying it, and I love studying. I love learning, and I think we both are super curious human beings, and I love the truth and the evolving truth of science, and how it's also connects so much into the arts, and how that also connects so much into spirituality. And there's a nexus point in there of those 3 things. I just was studying with this guy this weekend, actually last weekend, Robert Edward Grant, on the divine encryption, talking about Leonardo da Vinci and the Vesuvius Man and all the geometry. And you would have loved it, Dave. You would have eaten it up with me, because
the Fibonacci, yeah.
The sequence, yes.
Here's what's interesting, Julie. At least it's interesting to me.
Yeah.
I would not say you and I are the same person.
No.
You read about earthing
Yeah.
and grounding using a totally different library than I do.
Okay.
I go to the scientific publications.
Yes.
You go to experts in the field who've maybe been operating outside the scientific community for a while. And I don't use that in a disparaging way.
No.
But we come to the same conclusion.
Right.
So I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting that if there's something real and if there's something true, then it really doesn't matter which direction you come from, as long as you're diligent enough and committed enough to make sure that you educate yourself about it.
And I think that word truth, that's a really important word to me. Is like, I always feel that what we're bringing the world is some very deep truths about how this universe works and how we are a part of it all, and it's all connected. These are basic deep truths that, we can go back into ancient times and see the relevance there. But where are we now in our world, and where are we going? And can we really bring this truth to the world? Yes, we can. And that's our work. And that thrills me every day, Dave. I never get bored of that, ever.
I'm completely with you, and I also think that you and I are alike. I'm going to guess that when you go out to the local market,
Mm-hmm.
you talk to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So do I.
Yes.
And I was one thing. I'm grateful for golf because it's a wonderful walk in nature that I can enjoy with my oldest son once a week. We totally disconnect. There are certain rules that we play by. We totally disconnect. No cell phones.
Oh, good.
We play Zen golf, which is we don't bet, we don't keep score, we don't get upset, we don't break our clubs and cuss. But if we get one good shot per hole, it could be a putt, it could be a drive, it could be a chip shot that does what we want it to do, we're happy. We're happy. And guess what? We're not that bad. We're pretty good. As far as most of the weekend golfers, because we only play once a week and we don't have time to practice. But it's so good to be with him and a couple of other friends who go with us. One of whom happens to be a Nikkenite, an ex-Nikkenite, Jeremy Madvin. Do you know him?
Yeah.
He plays. He got me started back. But I was talking when I'm riding back to drop Clay off at his apartment, and he said, Pops, people don't talk to each other anymore.
Yeah.
And I said, that's not true. I don't agree with you. And he said, no, they say hi, but they don't really talk to each other. And I thought, okay, maybe he's right. And I drive home, and I stopped off at the local 7-Eleven. And go inside, and there's Don and Nikki behind the counter, who I always say hi to. And Don says to me, "Hey Dave, what do you know about geocentricity?" And we started talking about it, and the pluses, the minuses, how there are people who are geocentric rather than heliocentric, and they have responses for all of the objections, like phases of the moon, how do you explain this? And they have explanations for that. And so he's interested in it, and he's reading it. Why he brought it up to me, I'm not exactly sure. And then Nikki says, well, I'm reading about hypotheses on the origin of life. Okay, no offense, no disparity. These are two guys who work behind the counter at 7-Eleven.
Yep.
And we end up having in-depth discussions about geocentricity and Operan's hypothesis on the origin of life. And I drove home and I thought, if I tell Clay this, if I tell my son what I just discussed, the conversation that I just had, he won't believe me.
Yeah.
He'll think I'm making it up. But we're so grateful. I am so grateful to have the kind of personality that you do, that you also have, where we embrace everyone we meet.
Yeah.
And I think it's extremely important to do that. Not in a fake, not in an artificial way, because you feel that way about it. And I know that when growing up, sometimes my kids got impatient with me for doing. That's too bad. They got over it. Now they respect it. And it's so, to me, and again, that characteristic has been supported and buttressed by my involvement with Nikken. And because think about it, I mean, that's what we do. We treat people with respect. We're grateful to have other people in our lives. And you never know when you're going to have a discussion on geocentricity.
It's such a great story. And I think it is so true, but it's, because you said earlier about being open-minded. And I think it's what this is bringing to me is that it's also about being open-hearted. And it's just funny. I remember one time my car was in the shop and the shuttle lady, she gave me a ride back home, the driver, and we had this unbelievable conversation about Carl Sagan and the little blue dot and all that. And she was finding the film on YouTube so that I could see it because I hadn't seen it. And we had this extraordinary talk about quantum physics and everything. And neither of us are physicists, but we're just both curious. And it was the most stellar conversation. I was just like, thank you so much. This is beautiful, So it is open-hearted, energetically open and available to others. And I think, I can see your son's point, because I think a lot of younger people especially are on their phones all the time and they're texting across the table to their sister or brother, and it's sort of bizarre because it's like, where is the immediate connection, eye to eye, face to face, hug to hug? And I know in Nikken we've missed that. We have not been able to get together, as most people have not been able to get together recently for quite a while now. But I think we're coming back into that. I can't wait, because there's this transference that happens that goes beyond our words.
There's absolutely no question about it, and I have to not only agree with you, but when I first came back to do some presentations, we're still in the Zoom era. And I got off the presentation and Sarah asked me how it went. And I said, well, I think I presented clearly. I think people understood what I was saying and why, but there's no feedback. Yeah. There's no connection. There's no energy. And again, I don't want to get corny or cliche, but there's no vibration that I get back from the people who are listening to me, because that's extremely important.
Yes.
And it not only tells you whether your explanation is clear, it tells you whether it's too fast or too slow. You can tell by the body language, and you don't even have to say, oh, I'm looking at your body language. It's a sense that you have.
Yes.
And but it's turned out that the Zoom is okay. I am a little disappointed because, as you know, I think one of the things about my personality that I'm most grateful for is a sense of humor.
Yes.
And I feel like I have a pretty good sense of humor. I feel like, without being egotistical here, that I have a pretty good sense of comedic timing.
Yes.
But when I tell a joke on a Zoom presentation, I don't know if anybody's laughing. I don't know, Yeah. I don't know if they're thinking, oh, another dad joke or something like that, which is, I used to love getting up in front of a big group. Yes. And making people laugh.
Absolutely. And you would make them laugh and I would make them cry.
Well, there's
in a good way, cry.
Yeah, I know. I know, in a good way. Let's just say we tapped into different regions of their emotional spectrum.
Yes.
And both of them are vital.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, if you look at, Power versus Force, David Hawkins' work, and that scale of emotions, the highest vibrations, especially from where we create from, it's love, joy, which is laughter, and peace. these highest, and the lowest is shame and guilt, and we can't create from those low vibrations. That's why it's so important for us to always work on, and what we talk so much about with Humans Being More is working on our, not just mindset, but heart set, or, you know, what is our vibration. And this is why gratitude is so critical as well, because gratitude really involves forgiveness, because we all have our own paradigms of how we think life should go and how we think we should be treated and all of that. And just continual forgiveness is critical to having more gratitude, because it creates more space again.
You know, you're absolutely right. And I had a discussion the other day with somebody who said, well, I'm not talking to him anymore. I said, what could make you do that? Well, I've called him several times and he doesn't call me back. And I said, stop keeping score.
That's right.
You want to talk? You want to connect? Then you keep at it and you keep going, and don't worry about whether I'm putting my foot forward and there. Forget that. That's ego. Stop it.
Yes.
Make a connection. Make the re-up the connection that you want to be on. And so, you know, when you talk about family and being grateful, when we were raising our kids, I am grateful that we had the fortitude to make the right decisions and to stick with them. And I'll illustrate that by saying one of the things that we did with our kids, two boys and a girl, no TV. Now this is before social media, so I guess I got a little bit of a break. But no TV and no video games during the week, none. Friday night, they could watch TV if they wanted to. And on the weekends, they could only watch if they had a specific program that they wanted. And none of this surfing. If they had a specific program that they wanted to watch. And the boys ended up doing video games because, and I was okay with that because they're interactive. At least they're interactive. They got friends around and they're, you know, yelling at each other and having a good time. And they weren't sitting there in front of, and I'll use an antiquated term from my generation, the boob tube.
Yes.
You're just a couch potato sitting there.
Yeah. And
their friends couldn't believe it. And they would come home. In the beginning, they came home and complained. But we decided, no, it's okay. Your friends can do whatever they want to do, and their parents can act as they feel is correct. But no. And now they're grateful. Now they're grateful because they don't just vegetate. Nothing against plants, Julie.
No.
They don't just vegetate.
Yeah.
They read, they interact with their friends, they do things on the computer, they go out and take a walk in nature, they take a hike, and they don't just sit there and, how should I say, I'm going to say prematurely age.
Yeah.
You know? Speaking of which, my mom will be coming on Thanksgiving.
Oh, I love it.
She's turning 93 on the 15th of this month, the 15th of November.
Wow.
And she's staying in an assisted living not too far from here, maybe a half-hour drive. So I will go pick her up and I will bring her back here. And I'm grateful that she is still with us.
Yes.
And she uses a walker. She has a little bit of trouble getting around, but she's 93. But mentally, she's about 40.
That's fabulous.
And it's scary. It's scary. I'm on the phone. I call her. I good friends from Israel. I was in Tel Aviv visiting them. Well, I don't know, 10 years ago. And Rena, the wife of my good friend Kobe, she gets off the phone and she said, "Oh, my mom's doing fine." And I said, "Rena, how often do you speak to your mom?" And she looked at me like I was from the moon. She said, "Every day." I said, "Really?" She said, "I speak to my mom every day. I speak to my sister every day." And then she turned to me. She's walking in the kitchen. She turned back to me and she said, "Well, Dave, how often do you speak to your mom?" And I thought, once a month? And I immediately changed. And so as soon as I got home, I began calling my mom every day.
Oh.
Every afternoon between 3:30 and 4:30, I will call her. And you would think after literally thousands of telephone conversations, we would run out of things to talk about. Nope, never happened. So I'm very grateful for that. In fact, I'll give you an illustration of her mentality. So I'm talking with her, one of our afternoon phone conversations. I'm talking with her on the phone, and she said, "I'm very upset." And I said, "What's wrong?" She said, you know that little starlet, that young starlet, she does all those movies and people love her. Well, she stabbed her husband with her knife." And I said, "What?" And she said, yeah, you know who she is. Everyone's surprised that she stabbed her husband with a knife. And I said, "Mom, I'm looking on Google here. I'm in front of my computer. I'm looking on Google. I don't see anything here." I said, "You can't remember her name?" And she said, "Oh, Reese." And I said, "Witherspoon." And she said, "No, with her knife." She totally tricked me. She totally drew me in. And she was laughing her head off. She just thought that was funny.
You are cut from the same cloth is what it sounds like.
Well, yeah.
It's great.
No, we always had a good time. I've got an older brother and a younger brother, and their wives have told me that there is a unique and fortunately non-repeatable Balzer sense of humor. But I'm grateful to be able to laugh in most situations.
And that's powerful, because that takes us back to like deciding how to look at something and making it, not being so judgmental about, can you only love the beautiful things of life, or can you, and hate the ugly parts of life, or can you just really relish in the entire thing, because it's life, and life itself is something to be hugely grateful for, isn't it? I mean, maybe, here we are, like we've just talked for 40 minutes. I can't even believe it.
And maybe it's interesting that I'm grateful that I have my values.
Yes. And
I have the important things in my life that I value.
Yes.
But I'm grateful that I don't take things too seriously.
Yes.
I'm grateful that I can find humor in things, and that I'm not so serious, and I'm not so dour that I can't find humor in things. And
you are not going to become one of those grumpy old men. You remember those films?
I am where you. You know what? I'm already an old man, so what you see.
No, I'm talking about the future. You will not be one of those grumpy.
What you see is what you get. And I've had my children tell me. Now, my Clay is about to turn 40.
Yeah.
And Brian is a couple years younger, and Laura's a couple years younger again. And I've had all three of my children tell me separately and recently that they don't understand how at my age I can be as optimistic as I am. And I said, it's a gift, and I'm grateful for it, because I am optimistic.
Yes.
Is everything right in the world? Of course not. But I am optimistic, and I am grateful for what I perceive as the true essence of the human spirit. And I think that we'll figure it out. And we won't figure it out ahead of time. We'll figure it out just in time. But we'll figure it out. And so I'm optimistic for that. I'm grateful for my optimism, and I'm still optimistic. And
well, David, so beautiful what you're saying. I think this is a great place to complete here, because I'm feeling like the glass, it's a choice. The glass is half full or the glass is half empty, and you're choosing consistently. And it is a consistent moment by moment choice to view the world and your life as the glass half full. And I also, so not that I don't slip into the other sometimes.
Of course, but Julie, I will be eternally grateful that there's a glass at all.
There you go. Beautifully said.
I'll take the glass. I'll take the glass with a couple sips in it. I'm good to go.
That's awesome. And we are blessed to be together, blessed to have Nikken, super blessed to have you back with us in Nikken. I mean, everyone loves and admires you tremendously. Thank you for all your work. I know these new products it's going to be so exciting.
Yeah.
And
I'm happy to say that I'll be doing the introduction. I've been honored and asked, and I'm grateful for that. I am grateful for that. Honestly, this is not a setup. I didn't know that I would be asked, and I did have some participation in their development, so it'll be fun. I don't exactly know what dates. I think December 1st is the official launch, but I think there's the evening before is a pre-launch, something like that.
I don't know what's happening around it, but we will figure it out as we go. But it is very exciting, and this brings me just to say to all of you listening that there is an amazing future with Nikken, and we are in the right place with the right industry, with the right company, with the right products, with the right people to make a real difference in our world. That's what we're here to do, to serve well, to serve with joy, to serve with love, to serve with gratitude. Thank you, Dave, so much for joining me today. It's absolutely a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm grateful.
And thanks everyone for joining us. Don't forget, you can find this on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast. Do subscribe and make sure you share this with everyone. And also please rate us with a 5-star rating, of course. And that helps Nikken, and that helps you with your business. So thanks everybody. Have a wonderful holiday time full of gratitude in your own life. I am so grateful for you and for all of us and for life itself. Bye for now.